morning and a very warm welcome to all of you who are watching this on TDRA Virtual Academy platform. It is my honor, my privilege, and my pleasure to be presenting to all of you. A huge vote of thanks to TDRA Virtual Academy for inviting me once again. Today's subject is the active learning strategies, and this will, of course, be a half an hour session. Who is this useful for? For any of you who are educators, teachers, trainers, there would be a lot of things that you would be using and some things that we could bring new to the platform. This is also great for anybody who's wanting to venture into understanding how learning strategies work. Before we start today's program, I have two suggestions to make. One, of course, is that we ask you for all the questions, all your queries that you may have. We also ask you that you have any opinions upon the particular subject that we are touching upon. It'll help us create better content. It'll also help us understand what your perspectives are. It'll also help us generate more traction on this platform. So please do go ahead and write in and use your keyboard to help us out. The second thing is the house rule, which is to keep all the comments in the comment section respectful. And with that, I would like to also start with a brief introduction about myself. So my name is Smita Gaurav, and I am a coach, consultant, and trainer to very many government, semi-government, and private organizations in India and in the UAE. I have been in this field for about 18 years now. I'm also a social business owner, and I'm very happy to be here presenting to all of you today. Great to be here. Let us now start the program. Before we start the program, I'd like to just briefly outline what we will be doing. We'll, of course, be discussing the why and the what of active learning. Why is it important? What are the organizing principles of it? What are the main elements of it? And then we will go into the 11 most important tools that active strategies are. Please do keep clued on because we're also discussing AI as a learning strategy, along with some new software that can help us in active learning strategies as well. So do keep clued on till the end and let's start. So let us first start with active learning and why is it important? So increasingly in our educational field, in our learning environments, in our organization, we find that the learning levels that people are achieving are not what they should have been or they can be bettered. And so active learning strategies have been here around for a long time, especially in the training and the learning and development field. Let us now understand active learning activities and how they are important. So first of all, they develop what we call HOTS, or the high order thinking skills. We will go a little deeper into that and we'll talk about metacognition in a few slides. But what active learning basically does is to help us have more knowledge, more analysis, more evaluation of our subject, more synthesis and more application, and also a deeper conceptual understanding. It also facilitates a lot of deep learning. So this deep learning we will discuss later on. And what deep learners are, they are people who are innately curious. They might not be very marks focused or grade focused or status focused, but they are very curious explorers of knowledge. They like to go deep into the subject. They explore a lot. They find out new ways of thinking around that. So they are actually an asset. So active learning strategies are great for deep learners and they're great for promoting high order thinking. Let us now understand what is surface learning and deep learning. So at surface learning, students memorize facts and details and they have very little actual real-time interaction with the content of the subject or the concept that they are studying. They are only expected to learn on a short-term basis and regurgitate the whole thing or bring it back in a mindless format. These are of course very monotonous and they are very mundane, also very banal. They have very little ideation or arguments or analysis around it, and all the incentives are based upon how well they are able to score in the grades or marks. And so the entire focus, so to speak, is upon the gradation process and not the learning process. Whereas in deep learning, students relate to the content in a very organic, interactive manner. They learn to build upon it, they evaluate it, they synthesize it, they break it down into a number of sub-ideas, and they make solutions and they create new solutions and new arguments around it. This keeps our mind very rigorously involved in the process. At an emotional and a cognitive level, we are immersed in the entire process of learning. And learning as a process actually becomes a bit of a play because various facilities and various are being provided to you, and your faculties are fully engaged at the process. And the goal is to not just have grades, but to also have a conceptual understanding that you can transform or you can build upon. And therefore, the motivation comes from within. And we had discussed AMP in the earlier module on leadership and influence, and we had discussed why autonomy, mastery, and purpose are important. So, deep learning is all about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Mastery in your subject, having a purpose that you can fulfill with it. And this is what active learning strategies facilitate. So, very basically speaking, passive learning is the opposite of active learning. And in passive learning, we are lecturing, reading, consuming audio visuals, or having demonstrations. Whereas in the active learning formats, we are discussing, we are practicing, we are teaching others, we are involved in making new meanings about it. And therefore, these are the polar opposites of each other in terms of learning formats. And this is why it is important. When we are doing passive learning, which is audio-visual reading lectures, we only ingest 20% of the entire data which is being disseminated. As opposed to when we start doing active learning, we start going to 20 to 75%. So that is the amount of incremental knowledge that we are able to gain, or the amount of confidence that we are able to gain in what we are learning. Of course, when we start applying this into further ways, or we start doing what we call, real-time application of any knowledge, we start getting more and more learnings ingested and have better retention of it. So going a little deeper into that, we have somebody called David Bloom, and he had created the Bloom's taxonomy. And this beautiful pyramid over here talks about the levels of learning, where he talks about remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And as we go further up, we realize that we are moving from low order thinking to high order thinking skills. So students, therefore, are engaged in more activities than just listening. They are creating, they are analyzing, they are dissecting, and they are problem solving. And therefore, in this time, they are actually cultivating what we call high order thinking. So your brain function becomes better. From a physiological perspective, your brain starts functioning better when you're doing active learning as opposed to passive learning. And we will discuss a little more about how the brain function works as we go further in. First, a little psychology of the active learning. Active learning promotes a huge amount of motivation. And why is that? Because it generates something called the I can narrative inside your head. What is the I can narrative? So when you start saying things like, I can learn from this. Oh, I'm better at this than I was before. I'll bounce back from this failure. I'm not doing fine, but I can do better. I know that. I can maintain my focus. I can pay attention to details. I can maintain sustained levels of energy. I can be involved in this process for a long time. These are all I can statements. It also generates I am statements. Oh, I'm enjoying this. I'm satisfied with my work. I'm feeling very fulfilled. I'm enjoying various levels of achievement. I'm very proud about what I have learned so far. So motivation is a direct outcome of active learning strategies. But more importantly, it also develops a lot of agency. Now, what is agency and who are the agentic people? So, the people who are able to understand what steps they should take to make a visible difference in their life are the people who have agency. Okay? These people are the people who say that, oh, if I lend focus to this particular task, this is going to help me. So, they have a lot of stimulus control, firstly. They know what to pay attention to. So, their focus and their attention are firmly under their control. They do not allow it to wander. They know what will help them. The second thing is that they are very closed off to groupthink or social contagion. They do not allow other people's demotivation, bad moods, or low energies impact them. They are able to stand away from the groupthink and think independently of their own. So, an independent, open thinking that can help them learn, grow better, develops agency. This is what active learning does. So motivation, of course, we discussed, and the agentic part of it is also. So it develops agency inside us. Self-efficacy. It also develops self-efficacy. Now, this is very important that we understand what self-efficacy is, and we have discussed this in other formats, in other sessions as well. Self-efficacy basically is the opposite of self-esteem. Now, I know that all of you are thinking that self esteem is a good thing, and why is that not being put over here? But self esteem is now a concept which is now considered to be given to you by somebody else. When you do a job well, and then we wait for the other person's, ideas or their opinions that, oh, you did this fantastically well, they are building our self esteem, right? The other thing is that self esteem also depends a lot upon labels like, oh, you were wonderful, oh, you were so intelligent, oh, or you're so smart, oh, you're the best. These are actually ways of building our self esteem. And this is very important, not just for educators and teachers, but also for families. But the opposite of it is this, that if that person takes away that opinion from you, you again feel demotivated and flat. So, in that, you are not completely under your command, you are actually dependent upon somebody else. While we are not asking you to not take other people's opinions into account, we are asking people to develop their own source of esteem, which is what we call self efficacy. Self efficacy is the opposite of self esteem in two ways. First of all, you do not give yourself labels. You do not say that, hey, I'm so great, I'm so smart, I'm so intelligent, I'm so smart, so intelligent, but tomorrow you're not smart and not intelligent. So the better way of saying it is that I did this well and I'm very happy with my efforts. And that's a very balanced way of talking to yourself. And that is what cultivates self efficacy. So that's the first thing is it takes away its labels. Secondly, self efficacy is also dependent upon your opinion about yourself. What did you learn? What did you make out of it? What were your strengths? What were your weaknesses? What were your failures that you can learn from? What were your wins that you can build upon? This is what we call self efficacy. When these three factors have been given, we start retaining, recalling at a deeper level what we have learned, not just at a surface level and temporary short term memory, all information relegated to short term memory. No, it is there inside our system for a longer time. And then when we start applying it, it becomes a part of our organic knowledge base. That is why active learning strategies are exceedingly important to schools, organization, institutions. And the important thing is, every time that you do this, educators also start learning a little more than they did earlier. Hugely interesting subject. If any of you are interested in these concepts, it's great to look up positive psychology concepts online. There's a wealth of information. You'll find a lot that actually will facilitate your learning levels and other people's learning levels in your classroom. The three organizing principles that we're talking about, there are two or three others, but the first three are analysis, synthesis, and application. So, of course, we take and interact with a particular concept or a knowledge base, we analyze it, and then we start correlating it, synthesizing it with others, mix and match, so to speak, and then we start applying it. So, application is the truest evidence of a good active learning strategy. How well are you applying it? So, the knowledge to skill continuum is increasingly shortened because of active learning concepts. The second organizing principle is this, that active learning helps you not just do something. So you write an essay, that's doing something. But when you go back and redo your essay answers or you redo your case study answers, you're doing it all over again, which invites reflection. That's the first bit of it. But the second bit of it, which is more important, is this, that not only are you doing your essay the first time, you're thinking about it. And the second time, when you're doing your essay, when you're writing questions down or your answers down, you're rethinking about what you thought earlier. So a rethink always involves a close evaluation and monitoring of what you were doing earlier, you know, and that is where metacognition comes in. Metacognition is the ability to think about what you were thinking. Great for schools, very effective, very highly used, and very highly touted is the fact that you're able to think about what you were thinking, make changes incrementally or transformationally, and then jump onto a new curve altogether, maybe. That is what active learning strategies do for us. Also, it helps us in generating questions, solutions, and connections. So your brain is actively questioning, challenging, not satisfied till you are completely in the know about what you've understood. You're also creating solutions, you're also building more and more connections. And this is where neurons, brain function, mirror neurons, and neural pathways come in. To make these very, very scientific sounding words very simple, I will just have a brief explanation given to you. What is our brain made of? It is made of neurons. These neurons are actually electrical impulses. So every time when you see something, hear something, read something, or a stimuli is passing your entire mind, electrical impulse is given to your brain. These are the neurons. Uh, uh, these 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 electrical impulses actually are traveling between the neurons, and these electrical impulses join them into a pathway. So these are called your neural pathways. And so every time when your neural pathway is made, you have a set of learning, you know. And these neural pathways display what you have learned earlier. It could be a habit, it could be a new knowledge, it could be a new skill, whatever. But when you start learning something new, the neurons start breaking from each other because new electrical impulses are going through. The neurons start breaking from each other and start joining with other neurons. So new pathways are being made. And these new pathways reflect new learnings, new habits, new skills. So that is the brain aspect, the brain back part of active learning strategies. So it's actually generating a very healthy, agile brain when you're doing active learning strategies. Also, integration is important. What this means is this, that every time when we have a pre existing knowledge, we build upon that with new knowledge. And so this is important as an integration principle. Finally, we start talking about learning and learning opportunities to be able to recollect, collect, and correlate those learnings that we have done earlier. So, the learning, the reflection, and the integration are all vital aspects of active learning strategies, ladies and gentlemen. Let us now go into the various strategies for the active learning. Pair share is one of it. What is a pair share? You divide people into two, and then they are given a question, a stimuli, or a case study, and they're asked to come up with their own answers. And then they tell their answers to the other pair, and they both exchange their answer, and they start learning from each other in an incremental, organic manner. And so what happens is they start exploring diversity of opinions, brain processes, ideas, biases, prejudices, all of that come into function. The second way that you can do it is put them into triad, or which is actually threes. And one person becomes the observer, one person shares, one person listens, and then they again exchange notes. But this role is not again stable, so the next time the person who was listening will become the observer, the person who was sharing will now become a listener, and so the roles will keep on changing. They will each get a chance to be an observer, listener, or a sharer, and that's how they start building upon the learning levels. The group problem solving. Now, this is very important because this helps a lot of um, you know problem solving happens because of any kind of brainstorming sessions or convergent or divergent thinking, and this is where a lot of creativity and problem solving also take place. Any situation or case study is given to them, and they start coming together to solve and to find the best possible answers, and they have a hierarchy of answers that they want to build up upon, maybe understand why this was more important to the other, and so on. Then we talk about peer teaching. So in peer teaching, very interesting, confidence is built up. The people who are inhibited and shy, they start coming up and they start developing more confidence. They also understand better understanding of the concept. They have multiplicity of ideas in which the same subject is visited, so everybody is benefiting. But more importantly, everybody becomes engaged in the process of not just learning but also cheering on the other and getting diverse perspective around the whole concept that they're trying to learn. Polling, this is important. Why? Because polling tells us, so this is how it works. First of all, you give a case study or a matter to be studied before, and then they come to class and they either answer questions by way of a poll, or they are gauged the understanding of the concept through different ideas or questions being thrown around. And traditionally, what happened was the ticker machines were given to students, and they would give a yes or a no or an aye or a nay, and then the polling would be displayed on the screen. Now, of course, with online training, stickers are not available, so I highly recommend the Mentimeter. The Mentimeter works. It's with PowerPoints, and you can very well use it. And this is important for the educator because that tells them what exactly is the learning level in the classroom. Where can he start? What are the weak points? What are the biases? What are the learning roadblocks? What are the learning enablers? What is happening with the class? What is the group think behind the class? These are great ways of understanding the behaviorals that are actually behind the learning levels that they're showing. Then we have learning summary, which is you take back one single line or one single concept that you learned from a small module that you have learned. So by the end of the module, you have maybe 5 or 10 such learning summaries that you can have at easy to recall, top of the mind recall kind of statements that you can bring back. Very great for application. Helps the students also, summarize the whole thing in a clean manner, and it's a very effective way of bringing back learning recalls. Guided notes. This is very important. A word of caution: guided notes are best for two kinds of people. Either the people who have done lots of sessions and are perfectly sure about their own content, or people who have already achieved a high degree of mastery or have a high amount of knowledge existing. Even so, it is advisable that you probably do a couple of sessions before you make guided notes. Why? It is because a guided note is a format, it's a structure of questions and notes that you make, but you also leave blanks in between for the critical information to be keyed in by the students. So every time when the student has a critical information, there's a gap given there which they start using the pen and the paper, or the pencil and the paper for. Pencil and paper or pen paper strategies have been very strongly researched, and they are said to reiterate learning levels. So not only does the child or the learner or the student or the trainee get something to do kinesthetically, they also get a framework that you have provided for them so that they can go back to it and learn and understand what framework they have to think in, what is the structure that they have to think in, which is very important. So these guided notes help both with the structure of the thought process and also what they have been able to take back as a part of the key learnings. Again, great to have a few sessions before you start doing guided notes. Let us now understand role plays. So anybody who has done training programs will do understand role plays. In role plays, of course, we offer situations, case studies, case scenarios, hypothetical or real, and we ask the group to maybe nominate or pick up, or you can pick up 2 or 3 people who can act out a certain role which is there as a part of the case study. And then these people start visiting that particular role with their own ideas, with their own behaviorals, with their own mental maps, with their own ideas of what is right and what is wrong. So, this is a huge understanding of how that person behaves in a particular environment. It also brings out a diversity of opinions and perspectives. It also keeps the entire class heavily engaged into the process as it is a drama like situation that is unfolding in front of them. What it also does is it keeps the learners very emotionally engaged. The people who are doing role play become actively involved not just at a cognitive level, but like I said before, at an emotional level as to what they are doing. And so for them to be able to then revisit this role play from a metacognitive perspective becomes very enriching and very, very rewarding. Debates. So much like the presidential elections, you can have certain maybe ideas or a concept or a difficult hypothesis, or maybe a case study that you can ask two groups of people to bring out their representatives from, and they can argue. What typically happens in this is that the class becomes very polarized, very divided into I trust this or I don't trust this, or I believe in this, no, I don't believe in this. And it's great for creating balance and synergy. It's great for creating this and that as opposed to this versus that opinions. It also tells us where the learners are coming from a behavioral perspective. It tells us about what ideas or what their mental processes are and how you can build upon them with time. So if the educator is very keen and then they know what they are doing, they will be able to listen deeply about what are the behavioral challenges, how they can actually enhance the learning levels with the students. Pardon me. Then we come to the strategy part of it, which is the Jigsaw Group. In the Jigsaw Group, what happens is that the educators or the teachers, they divide the entire class into groups of 4 and give them what particular topic. They can either brainstorm or do research on that, and they all become experts on that particular topic per se. So you have various one, two, three, four groups, and they all have become now experts in that particular topic. And now the educator or the teacher or the facilitator will then take one person from every single group and put them into different groups. So the green group will have one person, the blue group will have one person, the red group will have one person, the yellow will have one person, making another group. And so new four groups are made from each of these different groups. And then they are asked to visit a particular topic or a concept from that point of view where they have become experts. This is great for incremental learnings because not just do you learn incrementally from each other, but you also learn from each other's expertise levels, which is vitally important for a group study. So not only are you inviting expertise, but you're also inviting either incremental or transformational learnings over here. Gamified learnings. So gamification is a very important of education today, not only in the learning and development sector, but all over. And the more gamified our modules and our knowledge base becomes, the more rewarding it becomes for the learner. So gamified learnings are such where modules are actually broken down or made into a game format. This could be online or not, and people are asked to start learning, and they're given various amount of challenges which they can start, overcoming. So this gives a huge amount of agency, self-efficacy, and motivation, like we had discussed before. Gamification, you have various kinds of websites, you have various apps that help you in this process. So please do Google and learn it. It's fantastic. So the learning happens, the challenges happen, and between this you can also insert your analysis, your restructuring of the content as you like. And what this does is it also provides rewards and achievements at the end of it. So there's a lot of rewarding that happens at the end of a gamification process. This ensures that there's a lot of user engagement happening all throughout, motivation is happening all throughout, yes. But more importantly, as we understand from brain sciences, is that our brain learns much better when we are at play. So when we are doing gamified learning, your entire body physiology is relaxed into a play situation. In a play state, your body is more curious, it is more exploring, it is more, open to ideas, it is more forthright, it's more candid. It also helps your immune system better, in fact. So whenever you are at play, or your body states are your play, your brain waves actually slow down, and therefore this actually helps you to ingest information better. Every gamification will be different. So some of them will be probably very exhilarating, some of them will not be so exhilarating, will be more relaxed. It depends on what style you want to use for your particular classroom. So these are the first 10 strategies that we have done. And before we go to the 11th strategy, I would just like to recap what we have done so far under the strategy part. So we have discussed, of course, the pair share, where we talked about the dyad and the triad. We talked about polling, why it is vitally important. We talked about groups problem solving, how it encourages convergent and divergent thinking. We also talked about how it is important to have people come into debates and to have understanding as to what is going for them and what is not. We talked about learning summaries. We also talked about guided notes, and we talked about gamified learnings. Finally, we then come to something which we called the immersive learning. So, artificial intelligence, as we know, has made inroads into our lives, into our learning sectors, into our homes, and everywhere. And so, immersive learning is very important to us. Why? Because it is using two different things, either it's augmented reality or virtual reality. And this virtual reality puts you into a different virtual scenario altogether. So, if any of you who have done gaming before or understand how virtual reality headsets work, you can you can be transported to a different locality, different space altogether, where all your stimuli is cut off, all your stimulus is cut off from your existing environment. And so your learning becomes that much more focused. All your attention is now on the learning material which is ahead of you. And so typically between 7 seconds to 30 seconds, or maybe a maximum of a minute, it takes the immersive learning process to kick in. That is what we call, you're totally immersed into it. You absorb that reality as a real as a real reality. That is your reality for that time. And so what this helps us do is visualization. It also creates a huge amount of interest. it creates engagements, it creates the right to fail safely. You're allowed to fail. It also allows for interactions with different people who are using the same product on different platforms, so you can interact with other people as well. And the quality of training becomes remarkably better because even though the human element is not there facilitating it, it at least helps you to understand that you are coming minus the human biases, minus the human weaknesses. So it's that much more structured, that much more scientific. So, immersive learning is taking space in practically every area of our life, and maybe organizations will be starting to use this much more than they currently are. Educational institutes are definitely using it. So, these are the 11 strategies that we spoke about over and above the organizing principles of reflection, collation, integration, etc., and why active learning is very important for our brain function and for our brain health as well. We also understand today that organizations will be bettering their learning strategies if all of these can be now used on the online platform as well. So on the online platform, you can use all of this. So for group discussions, for problem solving, you can use breakout rooms. That is very important. For learning summaries, again, you have various softwares that you can start using to give maybe in an interactive feel to what they have learned, and those learning summaries can be posted it up there for everyone to see, so that everybody starts learning from your learning summary. So the online methodology has in fact just increased the amount of tools that we can start working with in various ways. And so that brings us to the end of this session, and I do hope that this session has been vitally important in some ways to you, and you will have some learning takeaways that you'll be able to start applying immediately. We do look forward to hearing from you in the question section, on the comment section. Please do write to us. Until the next time that we meet, I hope that you have a good day ahead and wish you all a great new year for the coming 2023. Thank you all. Pleasure to be here. Bye bye now.